All right, let's jump right in. You know, when a company talks about its sales, the numbers can sound absolutely huge, right? Super exciting. But have you ever stopped to wonder, how much of that cash do they actually get to keep? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on profit. Think of it like peeling an onion. We're going to go layer by layer to find the real prize at the center. So let's get started.
So let's throw a big, impressive number out there, 734,000 pesos. Now, for our example company, XYZ Trading, this is their total sales. This is that top line number, the one that makes everyone go, wow, business is good. But is all of that money profit? Not even close.
And that right there, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Just because a ton of money comes in the front door, it definitely doesn't mean it all gets to stay. This is where the real story begins, finding out what's left after all the bills are paid. That's the true measure of success.
So here's our roadmap. We're going to start with revenue, the big number. Then we'll peel back the layers to find gross profit, then operating profit, and finally, the famous bottom line net profit. We'll also talk about why all of this really matters. Let's do it. Okay, first up, revenue. You might also hear this called net sales. This is ground zero, the total amount of money a business brings in from selling its stuff. For our company, XYZ Trading, that's our big 734,000 peso figure. It's the whole pie, right before anyone gets to take a slice.
All right, time to peel back that first layer. I mean, to sell something, you usually have to make it or buy it first, right? That initial cost is what we need to deal with right now to figure out our gross profit. This is our first real peek at the company's earnings.
So what in the world is this cost of sales? Well, think of it this way. These are the costs that are directly tied to the product itself. If you're building tables, it's the cost of the wood and the nails. If you're selling t-shirts, it's what you paid the factory for those shirts. Super important. This is not your office rent or your marketing budget. It's just the cost of the goods you sold. And the math here? It's actually beautifully simple. You just take your total sales, that big revenue number, and you subtract the cost of sales. That's it. Let's see what that looks like with our example company. So for XYZ Trading, they started with that P734,000 in sales, but the direct cost of the stuff they sold was P577,000. You subtract that, and bam, you're left with a gross profit of P157,000. Whoa, that big number we started with has already shrunk a lot, hasn't it? Let's break that down another way. This gives them a gross profit rate of about 21.4%. So what does that mean? It means for every 100 pesos they made in a sale, almost 79 of those pesos immediately went right back out the door just to pay for the product itself. That leaves less than 22 pesos as gross profit. And look, this is not just some random number for a spreadsheet. This rate is an incredibly powerful tool. It's what helps a business owner figure out, hey, is my selling price actually high enough, not just to cover the product, but to cover all the other expenses we're about to get into? Okay, so we've paid for the products. Great. But what about, the cost of just keeping the lights on, running the actual business? That brings us to our next layer of the onion, operating profit. Now, this is a really important distinction, so let's be super clear. Cost of sales is about the product. Operating expenses, that's everything else you need to run the business day to day. We're talking about things like salaries for your team, the rent for your office, your marketing campaigns, your electricity bill, all that stuff.
And once again, the math is not going to scare you away. It's really simple. We just take that gross profit we already calculated, and now we subtract all those operating expenses.
Let's go back to XYZ Trading. We start with their gross profit of P157,000. Now their operating expenses came out to P90,000. You subtract that, and their operating profit is now down to P67,000. See how we just keep getting closer and closer to the real number? So this number, operating profit, is a really big deal. It's a key sign of a company's health because it tells you how profitable the main business is, before you worry about things like loan payments or taxes. It's a true measure of how efficiently the business is being run, day in and day out. And now, the moment of truth. We've paid for the products, we've paid for the operations. It is time to peel back that final layer and find out what is truly left. This, my friends, is the famous bottom line. This is net profit. So this is the final hurdle. We take our operating profit and then we subtract any financing costs, like interest on a loan, and of course, you got to pay your taxes. Let's finish the story for XYZ Trading. From their operating profit of P67,000, we subtract P20,000 for income tax, and that leaves them with a final, actual, take-it-to-the-bank net profit of P46,900. And there it is. So what does that mean as a percentage of their total sales? Just 6.39%. Let that sink in for a second. From that huge P734,000 in sales they started with, the company truly kept just under P47,000. To put it another way, for every single peso that came in the door, only about 6 cents was actual, pure profit. Wow.
So why on earth did we go through all this? Because understanding these different layers is everything. Profit isn't just one number. Each stage, gross, operating, and net, tells you something completely different and vital about the health of the business. It's like a compass that guides every single decision.
Okay, let's wrap this up with a quick recap. Profit is a story told in layers. We start with gross profit, which helps you price things right. Then we get operating profit, which shows you how efficient your day-to-day business is. And finally, net profit, the ultimate scorecard of financial health. Understanding each one of these is how you find problems, spot opportunities, and build a genuinely strong business.
And I want to leave you with this final thought. You see, all the calculations we just did, that's the science part. But knowing what to do with that information, how to react, how to innovate, how to lead, that is the art. These numbers, gross, operating, and net profit, they're simply the compass. They don't draw the map for you, but they give every single entrepreneur the direction they need to navigate that amazing creative journey of building something great.